20 home items from the 1970s that no longer exist. There was a time when homes felt like time capsules, filled with colors, textures, and gadgets that defined an entire generation. In this video, we're stepping back into the cozy, quirky world of 1970s living. How many of these once everyday home items do you still remember? Vinyl record players. Sliding a vinyl from its sleeve and setting the needle down felt more like a ceremony than a simple act of listening. In the 1970s, music wasn't something you played in the background, it was something you prepared for. It often began with flipping through a crate of well-loved albums, searching for that one perfect side to fit your mood. Then came the soft crackle as the record spun to life, a sound that meant something good was about to begin. Record players weren't just electronic devices, they were fixtures of the living room, often built into polished wooden consoles that doubled as furniture. Whether you owned a sleek Sony model or a bulky RCA cabinet unit, having a turntable said you valued not just music, but the full sensory experience that came with it. These machines brought people together. Families gathered for Saturday night records. Teens hosted listening sessions with friends, swapping stories between songs. Even the physical act of handling vinyl, feeling its weight, aligning the stylus, created a deeper bond between listener and sound. In an age before streaming, it was this ritual that made music feel personal. Each spin of the record carried stories, memories, and the gentle rhythm of life at home. Velvet paintings. Do you remember the first time you saw a painting that almost glowed in the dark? In the 1970s, velvet paintings captured the imagination of a generation with their moody backdrops, radiant colors, and a texture so rich you couldn't help but reach out and touch it. They weren't the kind of artwork you'd find in a gallery, but that was exactly the point. These pieces, often picked up from roadside vendors, flea markets, or budget department stores like Kmart, brought a bold flair to the everyday American living room. Whether it was a wide-eyed tiger, a sorrowful matador, or the unmistakable face of Elvis, these portraits were dramatic, mysterious, and just a little bit wild. What made them truly stand out was the black velvet canvas, which gave the colors a strange luminosity, almost as if they were lit from within. At a time when home decor embraced the eclectic and unexpected, velvet paintings fit right in. They didn't just decorate a wall, they sparked conversation, added personality, and gave a room that unmistakable 70s vibe. Some found them gaudy, others endearing, but no one could ignore them. For many, they remain a quirky but cherished symbol of a decade that dared to be different. Avocado green appliances. Late afternoons in my childhood often began with the gentle creak of a cabinet door and the low hum of our avocado green fridge working steadily in the corner. I can still picture my mother, standing by the stove in her apron, stirring a pot of soup that steamed beneath the glow of a hanging brass light. In the 1970s, avocado green wasn't just popular, it was iconic. Kitchens all across America embraced this earthy, vibrant tone as a fresh departure from the sterile look of post-war white enamel. Appliance makers like General Electric and Whirlpool leaned into the trend, releasing full lines of stoves, refrigerators, and dishwashers in that signature shade. The color paired naturally with the dark wood cabinets and vinyl floors so common at the time, wrapping the room in warmth. It was more than decor. It was a statement about modern living, rooted in the back-to-nature spirit of the decade. While today it may seem quirky or outdated, back then, avocado green was cutting edge. And for many families, those sturdy, colorful appliances became the backdrop to everyday life, quietly witnessing laughter, meals, and moments that mattered far more than the color ever could. TV trays. Back in the 70s, setting up a TV tray felt like preparing for a personal event. Part dinner, part television premiere, and maybe a little chaos if Jell-O was involved. These lightweight, foldable trays were more than just a convenient place to rest your plate. They were an invitation to eat in your favorite chair, in your pajamas, with the whole family tuned in to the same show at the same time. You didn't need a formal dining table, just a tray, a TV guide, and maybe some mashed potatoes sliding dangerously close to the edge. Department stores like JCPenney and Sears carried stacks of them, decorated in everything from wood grain to wild floral prints to cartoon characters. They tucked away easily behind the sofa or beside the fridge, waiting for their moment to shine during evening reruns of MASH or Happy Days. What made them special wasn't just their portability, it was the casual joy they brought. They blurred the lines between meals and entertainment, turning dinner into something more relaxed, more connected. For many families, those wobbly little trays held more than food. They held memories of laughter, reruns, and a simpler kind of togetherness. Did your childhood home have any of these? Please let us know in the comments. Harvest Gold Decor. Isn't it strange how a single shade can carry the weight of an entire decade? In the 1970s, Harvest Gold swept through American homes like a quiet sunbeam, bold, warm, and impossible to ignore. This rich mustard yellow hue wasn't just a passing color trend, it became a defining feature of home decor, a statement of style and optimism woven into everyday life. From kitchen appliances to laminate countertops, and even fabric-covered lampshades, Harvest Gold made its mark. Appliance giants like Kenmore and Frigidaire embraced the look, rolling out refrigerators, dishwashers, and stovetops in this golden hue. But it didn't stop there. The color worked its way into drapes, upholstery, and wall art, frequently paired with other earthy tones like avocado green or deep brown to create interiors that felt grounded and full of personality. It was a time when color wasn't an afterthought. It was a conversation. Harvest Gold gave rooms a welcoming glow, especially when set against wood paneling, shag carpeting, and textured wallpaper. It reflected the decade's broader embrace of natural elements and relaxed living. Though the color has faded from modern design, it still lingers in memory, bright, cheerful, and forever tied to a time when homes were designed to feel alive. Sunburst Clocks. Few objects captured the energy of a room quite like a sunburst clock. With their bold symmetry and gleaming metal rays, these timepieces became a defining accent in 1970s interiors. Though inspired by the sleek optimism of 1950s modernism, they truly came into their own during the more expressive and experimental spirit of the 70s. Nearly every department store, from Sears to JCPenney, carried them, their brass or chrome spokes glinting under fluorescent lights, waiting to be chosen. The design was simple, yet striking. A small circular face surrounded by radiating lines, evoking both the sun and the sense of motion. This shape fit effortlessly into homes that celebrated flair. Spaces filled with shag carpet, wood paneling, and bold tones that reflected a generation unafraid to stand out. Beyond their visual appeal, Sunburst Clocks spoke to the era's desire to merge functionality with personality. They didn't just tell time, they added rhythm to a wall, sparkle to a mantel, or drama to a quiet corner. Over time, as minimalism replaced maximalist charm, these clocks faded from mainstream design. But their silhouette still lingers in memory, vibrant, proud, and unmistakably tied to a decade that loved to make a statement. Rotary Phones. Whatever happened to the quiet thrill of dialing a number and not knowing who might answer on the other end? As a kid, I used to sneak into the hallway just to spin the rotary dial on our tan wall phone, even when I didn't have anyone to call. The clicking sound as it reset after each number felt oddly satisfying, almost like winding up a tiny machine built for connection. In the 1970s, rotary phones were more than just a way to reach someone. They were fixtures of the household, sitting proudly on kitchen counters or hallway tables, always within reach when plans needed making or gossip needed sharing. With their weighty receivers and circular dials, these phones demanded your full attention, Calling someone wasn't instant. It required intention, patience, and sometimes a little muscle if the number had too many zeros. Long before caller ID or speed dial, hearing the phone ring sparked genuine curiosity. Families gathered around, wondering who it could be. Teens stretched the cords into closets for privacy. Parents timed calls to avoid long-distance fees. Though they've faded from modern life, rotary phones remain a tactile, meaningful reminder of a slower, more deliberate kind of communication and the moments that unfolded around it. Shag carpeting. Soft underfoot and loud in style, shag carpeting brought the 1970s to life, one colorful room at a time. It wasn't just flooring, it was flair. With its deep, textured pile and earthy tones like avocado green, burnt orange, and golden mustard, shag carpet wrapped every space in warmth. It turned the coldest rooms into cozy, lived-in havens, perfect for relaxing, sprawling, or just lying on the floor listening to records. The thick fibers weren't chosen for practicality, they were chosen for feeling. Shag transformed floors into a kind of fabric, something you could touch, sink into, and remember. Paired with wood-paneled walls, patterned upholstery, and funky lighting, it created an environment that was both laid back and expressive. Maintenance, however, was another story. The very thing that made shag inviting, its thickness, also made it a magnet for dust, pet hair, and anything tracked in from outside. Vacuum cleaners groaned, yet homeowners embraced the chaos. Knowing style sometimes required sacrifice. Though it gradually disappeared in the decades that followed, shag carpeting remains one of the most iconic design choices of the era. In memory, it still conjures a feeling of warmth, comfort, and a time when texture mattered just as much as color. Brown leather recliners. What made one chair feel like it ruled the entire living room? In the 1970s, the brown leather recliner wasn't just a seat, it was a symbol of ease, authority, and well-earned rest. Oversized, overstuffed, and built like a tank, it was the kind of chair that didn't move once placed. Anchored in front of the television, it became a fixture of the home's daily rhythm. Typically upholstered in deep chocolate or mahogany tones, these recliners offered both comfort and durability. The thick leather softened with time, developing a worn-in richness that only added to its character. Brands like Lazy Boy and department stores such as Sears made these chairs widely available, often marketing them as luxury seating for the modern household. What made them especially appealing was their mechanical simplicity. A single pull of a lever launched the footrest and gently tilted the back, creating the perfect spot for afternoon naps, football games, or simply escaping the noise of the day. Beyond function, these chairs carried quiet prestige. To own one was to signal you had made space for comfort, and maybe even claimed a corner of the house as your own. Today, they remain a nostalgic icon of a slower, softer style of living. Waterbeds. You hadn't really lived in the 70s until you tried falling asleep on a mattress that felt like it belonged more in a swimming pool than a bedroom. My cousin had one, and I still remember the first time I climbed onto it. It was like trying to nap on a slow-motion wave. We'd take turns flopping onto it just to watch the ripples roll under each other. Of course, our parents warned us not to roughhouse on it, which only made it more tempting. Originally invented as a therapeutic mattress for hospitals, the waterbed found its true calling in suburbia. By the mid-1970s, it had become a pop culture sensation, a bedroom must-have for anyone who wanted to sleep with style. They were big, bold, and often framed in dark-stained wood, complete with mirrored headboards, built-in shelves, and sometimes even built-in lighting. For couples, it was marketed as modern luxury. For kids, it was part spaceship, part trampoline, and for everyone else, it was just plain cool. Eventually, leaks, maintenance, and changing tastes led to their decline. But for a while, waterbeds were more than a novelty. They were a symbol of comfort, rebellion, and the experimental spirit of the decade. If this video brought back memories, give it a thumbs up and hit subscribe for more nostalgic journeys. Lava lamps. Light didn't just glow in the 1970s, it danced. Lava lamps brought a strange kind of magic into homes, casting slow-moving shadows that pulsed with color and mood. Though their origins reached back to the swinging 60s, these mesmerizing lamps found their true spotlight in the following decade, where they became a staple of bedrooms, basements, and rec rooms across America. With molten blobs of wax swirling in vivid liquid, they offered more than illumination. They set a tone. Their steady, hypnotic rhythm gave off an almost meditative calm, perfect for quiet nights or mellow gatherings. And unlike traditional lamps, which aimed to brighten a space, lava lamps invited you to slow down and drift. From mall novelty shops to department store shelves, they were widely available and surprisingly affordable. Their appeal lay in their playfulness, but also in how they embodied the spirit of the time: bold, experimental, and unapologetically expressive. Paired with beanbag chairs, shag rugs, or blacklight posters, lava lamps completed a look that was uniquely 70s. They didn't demand attention, they lured it gently. And while trends have shifted, their soft, bubbling glow still lingers in our collective memory as a symbol of a cooler, slower, and more imaginative time. Wicker furniture. What is it about woven textures that instantly soften a room? In the 1970s, wicker furniture offered a breath of fresh air, both literally and stylistically. With its lightweight frame and intricate hand-woven patterns, it brought a sense of calm, earthiness, and casual charm into American homes. While wicker had existed for centuries, the decade gave it new life indoors, transforming it from porch staple to living room centerpiece. Typically made from rattan, bamboo, or other natural fibers, wicker pieces, especially chairs, end tables, and love seats, blended seamlessly with the era's fondness for organic design. They often came adorned with thick patterned cushions in burnt oranges, mustard yellows, or avocado greens, perfectly matching the color palette of the time. Stores like Pier 1 Imports, along with countless local furniture shops, made these sets accessible to anyone seeking that laid-back, sun-soaked look. Beyond aesthetics, wicker was functional, easy to move, resilient, and surprisingly long-lasting. Paired with macrame plant hangers, hanging ferns, and large windows, it helped define the relaxed bohemian style that swept through homes in the 70s. Though its popularity eventually faded, wicker furniture remains a quiet symbol of a time when design leaned toward the natural, and comfort came wrapped in sunlight and simplicity. Polaroid cameras. Back in the day, photography didn't require patience. It just required a Polaroid and a steady hand. Long before smartphones and social media filters, instant cameras brought a little bit of magic to everyday life. Introduced by the Polaroid Corporation, these boxy, quirky machines let people take a picture and hold the memory in their hands just seconds later. In an era that still relied on film rolls and photo labs, this was nothing short of revolutionary. Polaroid cameras weren't reserved for professionals or tech enthusiasts. Their point-and-shoot design made them accessible to anyone: kids, grandparents, and everyone in between. Stores like Montgomery Ward and Kmart kept them well stocked, and soon, no birthday party or vacation felt complete without that satisfying click and mechanical whir. Then came the ritual: peel the photo, or shake it just a little, and watch as the moment slowly faded into view. No retakes, no filters, just whatever was captured in that spontaneous second. These snapshots became more than pictures. They were souvenirs of laughter, milestones, and fleeting glances that didn't need editing to be memorable. Even now, those white-bordered prints live on in scrapbooks, shoeboxes, and hearts as reminders of when memory making was simple, tactile, and joyful. Beanbag chairs. Could anything feel more like the 70s than furniture that flopped when you did? Beanbag chairs were the ultimate symbol of laid-back living. With no structure, no rules, and no pretension, these oversized sacks filled with foam beads made themselves right at home in every corner of the house, from funky basements to bedroom nooks. You didn't sit on a beanbag, you fell into it, and it welcomed you like a hug. Available in wild, saturated colors, sunset orange, banana yellow, or neon green, they blended seamlessly into the bold, psychedelic decor of the era. Their fluid shape adapted to your body, making them a favorite for kids, teens, and anyone who didn't mind sinking in and maybe needing help getting out. They weren't exactly practical. They lost their shape, leaked beads, and didn't offer much support. But none of that mattered, because they weren't trying to be anything other than fun. By the time the trend faded, beanbag chairs had already left their mark as a joyful, slightly rebellious answer to stiff, formal furniture. They brought playfulness into the home and reminded everyone that comfort didn't have to be serious. Today, they're mostly gone, but their squishy legacy still brings a smile to anyone who once fell into one. Wood paneling. Some walls didn't just hold up the house, they brought the whole place to life. In the 1970s, wood paneling wasn't just a design trend, it was practically a rite of passage for American homes. Whether it was authentic oak or a faux wood veneer with just enough shine to fool your guests, paneling gave every room a grounded, rustic charm. Dens, basements, living rooms. It didn't matter where you put it. Once those vertical lines went up, the space instantly felt cozier. Often paired with shag carpet and earth-toned furniture, wood paneling helped build that signature 70s atmosphere. Relaxed, a little funky, and undeniably warm. It wasn't just about looks either. Paneling was practical. It covered wall imperfections, insulated rooms slightly better than paint, and gave homeowners a budget-friendly way to feel like they were upgrading. Sure, trends have changed. Open spaces and minimalist walls now dominate modern interiors. But back then, these rich brown panels made homes feel tucked in, like a log cabin dream just off Main Street. Though it has mostly faded from fashion, the memory of wood-paneled rooms still lingers, a visual soundtrack to family gatherings, TV nights, and a time when home really did feel like your favorite flannel shirt, soft, warm, and full of character. Is there a 1970s item we missed? Drop it in the comments. We might feature it next time. Fondue sets. Can a bubbling pot of melted cheese really capture the spirit of a decade? In the 1970s, fondue sets weren't just kitchenware. They were an event. Borrowed from Swiss tradition and quickly embraced by American households, fondue became the centerpiece of dinner parties where food and fun went hand in hand. Whether it was creamy cheese, velvety chocolate, or sizzling oil for bite-sized meats, fondue encouraged something that often gets lost at the dinner table: shared experience. Every guest got a long-stemmed fork and a chance to dip, swirl, and laugh across a pot placed right at the heart of the table. It wasn't about presentation or perfect plating. It was interactive, communal, and just the right amount of messy. Stores like Sears and Macy's proudly displayed fondue sets in all shapes and finishes, often echoing the warm oranges, burnt reds, and browns that colored the decade. More than a trend, fondue reflected the 1970s shift toward informal, inclusive entertaining. It blurred the lines between host and guest, meal and game, elegance and ease. Though it's mostly faded from modern kitchens, the fondue pot still stands as a symbol of togetherness, when conversation lingered longer and food was a reason to gather, not just a course to finish. Macrame plant hangers. Tucked in windows and corners, like quiet little sculptures, macrame plant hangers helped homes of the 70s breathe. This wasn't just a craft, it was a cultural expression. Macrame, with its intricate knots and earthy elegance, found its way into countless living rooms, sunrooms, and porches, becoming a symbol of the back-to-nature movement that defined much of the decade. Woven by hand from cotton cord, jute, or hemp, these hangers didn't shout for attention. They simply belonged. Available at local fairs, hobby stores, or made at home with DIY kits, each piece had its own rhythm. The knots twisted like vines, creating a cradle for spider plants, ivy, or ferns to dangle freely, catching bits of sun as they swayed with the breeze. Many were dyed in hues pulled from the natural world: burnt orange, walnut brown, mossy green, blending effortlessly with wood paneling and wicker furniture. Beyond their beauty, they served a quiet purpose: to bring life indoors and to make even the smallest corners feel alive. They weren't flashy. They didn't need to be. Today, the art still surfaces now and then, a soft reminder of when style, soul, and soil came together, suspended in midair, knotted with care. Popcorn ceilings. They didn't shine or shimmer, but ceilings in the 1970s had a personality all their own. Known as popcorn ceilings, these softly textured surfaces became a defining feature of mid-century homes. With their bumpy, stippled appearance, they offered more than just visual interest. They served a purpose. Builders favored them for their ability to muffle sound, mask flaws, and provide a quick solution to uneven plasterwork. For homeowners, they added a sense of warmth and coziness, especially in rooms designed for gathering or rest. You'd find them in bedrooms, hallways, living rooms, anywhere a soft ceiling touch was welcome. Sometimes installed by professionals, sometimes added as a weekend DIY project, the popcorn finish gave ceilings a tactile charm that quietly complemented shag carpets, wood paneling, and the earthy palettes of the decade. Sure, they were notorious for collecting dust and resisting easy cleaning, but that texture? It made the ceilings feel alive, like a silent echo of the era itself. Though modern tastes lean toward clean, flat surfaces, spotting a popcorn ceiling today is like opening a time capsule. It brings back the hum of family life, the gentle hush of a quiet room, and the oddly comforting roughness above that made a house feel like home. Faux Fur Throws. Blankets weren't just for warmth, they were part of the mood, part of the moment. In the 1970s, faux fur throws made their way into living rooms and bedrooms across America, offering a sense of comfort that was both tactile and visual. Made from synthetic fibers crafted to imitate the lush softness of real fur, these throws combined affordability with elegance. Draped casually over the back of a sofa or laid across the foot of a bed, they added depth and drama to a room without trying too hard. You'd find them in deep chocolate browns, snowy whites, or jewel tones like burgundy and sapphire, each one catching light and shadow in a way that gave fabric its own kind of presence. Their texture was irresistible, inviting you to sink into a chair, pull one around your shoulders, and settle in. Faux fur throws weren't merely decorative, they were part of a broader design philosophy that embraced richness, softness, and the layered look. In homes filled with shag carpet, velvet pillows, and wood-paneled walls, these blankets fit right in. Today, they may seem like a glamorous relic of a cozy era, but they still remind us how the little things, soft textures, rich tones, and a bit of flair, could make a house feel like a sanctuary. Plastic furniture covers. Did your grandma ever cover the sofa in plastic and still tell you not to sit on it? In the 1970s, plastic furniture covers were a common sight in living rooms across America. They were more than just protective layers. They were declarations of care, thrift, and pride. These thick, crinkly shields were often fitted tightly over couches and armchairs, preserving the original upholstery for guests or special occasions that rarely arrived. The idea was simple. Keep the furniture looking brand new, no matter how many sticky fingers or Sunday naps tried otherwise. Sitting on one wasn't exactly cozy, especially in the summer when you'd slowly peel yourself off with every movement. But that was part of the charm. The plastic covers gleamed under the light, often reflecting the glow of wood paneling or nearby table lamps. They were a fixture in homes that valued longevity and believed that beauty should be maintained, not worn out. Over time, as home styles modernized and comfort took precedence, plastic covers gradually disappeared. Yet for many, the sight, or sound, of them still triggers a smile. They're a nostalgic reminder of a time when every cushion had a guardian, and every guest was worth preparing for. Ever wonder why baby boomers call today's houses stick homes? It's not just nostalgia. It's because we've lost some truly brilliant, quirky, and downright charming features from the past. From secret staircases to built-in ironing boards. Let's uncover 20 forgotten home features that once made houses feel like homes. Ready for a walk through history? Shoe scraper. Let's take a step back in time, literally, to when muddy streets were more than just an inconvenience. In old European towns, you'd often find a sturdy little device planted near the front door of every home. The shoe scraper. It wasn't just decorative, it was essential. Long before paved roads and cars, city streets were a messy mix of dirt, grime, and more often than not, horse droppings. That's right. Mud was often a polite way of saying street poop. These scrapers, usually made of cast iron, gave folks a chance to clean their boots before tracking all that filth inside. In the US, some jokingly called it Jerry's front door and insisted it be treated with a little more dignity. But by the early 20th century, the automobile began replacing horses, and the scrapers started disappearing. During World Wars I and II, many were even removed, especially in the UK, to collect scrap metal for the war effort. Ironically, much of that cast iron wasn't even needed and ended up unused, piled high in storage yards. And so, the humble shoe scraper quietly faded into history. Big front porches. There was a time when life moved a little slower, and big front porches were the heart of the home. Not just an architectural feature, they were a way of life. A deep porch with wooden railings, ornate trim, maybe a sturdy swing swaying in the breeze. That was your social media before screens took over. Back in the day, especially in neighborhoods like the near west side of Chicago, porches were where families gathered in the evenings to catch a breeze, cool off, and chat with folks walking by. No one had air conditioning, so sitting outside made sense. It wasn't just about staying cool, it was about staying connected. You could wave to a neighbor, chat about the weather, or yell at a kid for stepping on your lawn, all from your own little perch. But when air conditioning became standard in homes, the porch started to vanish from new builds. Today, if you sit out front watching people pass by, it might seem strange or nosy. But once upon a time, it was the soul of the neighborhood. Picture rails. Picture rails are one of those charming, old home features that often go unnoticed, until one day you realize you've had them all along. These slender strips of molding, usually running just below the ceiling, were once a brilliant solution for hanging artwork without hammering nails directly into your walls. And for anyone who's ever spent hours patching holes or struggling with crooked frames, they're nothing short of a revelation. In the past, picture rails were both practical and elegant. They allowed homeowners to easily rearrange their wall art, and the rail itself added a touch of decorative flair to a room. If you've discovered one in your home, consider yourself lucky. It's like finding a hidden gem. Hooks don't need to sit flush. They simply rest on the top edge of the rail. While the sleek modern hooks look nice, we'd steer clear of them for anything heavy. Pairing picture rails with bold wall colors, vintage bed frames, and statement art can bring a room to life, just like the past, only better. Transom windows. Transom windows are one of those subtle but beautiful old house features that quietly enhance a space without screaming for attention. Positioned above doors or other windows, they were originally designed to let in natural light and improve airflow, especially before air conditioning became widespread. While you don't see them often in newer builds, mid-century homes used them cleverly, particularly above sliding glass doors in living rooms or leading out to screened porches. Some custom-built homes from the era went all out, installing transoms across 4-panel sliding doors. The result? A bright, open feel that connected the indoors to the outdoors. You'd get glimpses of treetops and sky, even from deep inside the house, and it brought a soft glow into the room all day long. And the best part? No fussing with blinds or shutters. They gave you light and privacy at the same time. Sadly, modern cookie-cutter homes with off-the-shelf plastic sliders can't quite capture that same charm. But if you're lucky enough to have transoms in your home, treasure them. They're more than just glass. They're little windows into the way homes used to be built, with care, light, and a quiet connection to the world outside. Home intercoms. Before smartphones and group texts, home intercoms were the cutting-edge way to communicate across a house, especially one with multiple levels or wings. These systems were wired right into the walls, often with a little speaker box in every major room. On paper, it was genius. Parents could call the kids down for dinner without climbing stairs. Kids could check in from their bedrooms. It was meant to make life easier, and sometimes it actually did. Of course, moms had their own way of using the system. Ours liked to blast the FM radio feature while cleaning, but when it came to getting our attention, good old-fashioned yelling still worked best. And let's not forget the darker side of intercoms, like when she'd crank it up early in the morning, not with music, but with a recording of Robert F. Kennedy's assassination report to shock us out of bed. We also got sneaky, locking on the kitchen intercom just to eavesdrop on adult conversations. And if you've ever tried removing one of these dinosaurs, you know it's a nightmare. Wires everywhere, converters buzzing like angry bees. These days, we've gone back to what always worked, standing in the kitchen and hollering, "Dinner's ready." That's the original wireless system. Call it Hollercom. Oldies kept it cool. Long before air conditioning was a household standard, folks in the 60s and 70s knew how to beat the heat the old-fashioned way. And guess what? They did just fine. Most homes didn't have central air, and schools certainly didn't. So families got creative and smart about staying cool. It started with how homes were built. Windows were placed on opposite walls to create cross breezes. Houses were positioned to catch natural airflow, and porches were wide, shady, and open, perfect for lounging with a cold drink. Attics were heavily insulated and packed with roof vents to release trapped heat. In fact, ceilings were often 12 feet high, allowing warm air to rise and cooler air to settle where people actually lived. Bedrooms on the second floor got the best nighttime breezes. Kitchens were placed at the back of the house, or even in separate buildings, to keep the main rooms cooler. Fans weren't just for cooling off one person. They were used to pull air through the entire house. And people dressed smart. Cotton, linen, and breathable fabrics. No sticky polyester here. We spent evenings outside under the trees, playing cards, making homemade ice cream, and catching lightning bugs. Life moved slower, but it was sweet, simple, and surprisingly cool. What's one vintage home feature you wish modern houses still had? Milk chutes. Milk chutes, those tiny forgotten doors built into the sides of mid-century suburban homes, were once a staple of everyday life. Back when the milkman was a regular visitor, these little openings were more than just practical. They were magical. For kids, they were like a mini treasure chest, filled each morning with glass bottles of fresh milk, maybe even some cream or cheese if you were lucky. The design was clever and efficient. 2 small doors, one on the outside for the milkman, and one on the inside for the family. Between them was a small cavity where the bottles were safely placed, shielded from weather, pests, and prying hands. Some fancier versions even had adjustable dials to indicate how much milk was needed, like a vintage version of today's online delivery settings. The milkmen themselves were heroes of routine. Up before dawn, they'd brave barking dogs and unpredictable weather just to make sure your breakfast table was complete. Today, most people have no idea what those little doors were for, but those who grew up with them remember their charm. Now repurposed as secret pet portals or quirky storage nooks, milk chutes may just be poised for a comeback in this era of constant home delivery. After all, good design never really goes out of style. Built-in ironing boards. If you've ever lived in an old house and opened a narrow wall cabinet, only to get bonked on the head by a falling plank, you probably discovered one of the greatest space-saving inventions of its time, the built-in ironing board. These handy little closets weren't just clever, they were a household essential in a time when crisp collars and wrinkle-free shirts were non-negotiable. Back in the early to mid-20th century, every homemaker dreamed of having one of these tucked neatly into the wall, usually right off the kitchen or laundry area. With just a flick, the ironing board would fold down, ready for action. No dragging a board out of the closet or wrestling with wobbly legs. It was always there when you needed it. But these boards weren't just for pressing trousers. Kids used them as pirate ship gangplanks, forts, or secret tables. Some grandmas even used them as a makeshift kitchen counter, stocked with starch, fabric sprays, and that familiar iron. These built-ins were like the Swiss Army knife of domestic life. Thank you for watching. To continue with more content, comment "Yes" to let us know you're still following. Stained glass. It's not just something you find in old churches or your grandma's front door. It's a true masterpiece of art, history, and craftsmanship. And believe it or not, it was the 1800s version of mood lighting. Before LEDs or smart bulbs existed, people used light itself as an artistic medium, and stained glass was the crown jewel of that movement. Originally reserved for the wealthy elite, stained glass began in cathedrals and stately homes, pieced together by skilled artisans who treated each panel like a delicate, colorful puzzle. In the Victorian era, it got a second wind, as a romantic resurgence of medieval styles brought stained glass into everyday homes. Whether decorating balcony windows or transoms above doors, it added a graceful blend of beauty and privacy, letting in sunlight while distorting outside views. As the sun moved, these glass artworks shifted, casting vibrant geometric patterns that danced across the room like living paintings. Public buildings like libraries, courthouses, and museums joined in, using stained glass, not only for decoration, but to commemorate historic moments and honor heroes. Servant staircase. If you've ever stumbled across a narrow, steep staircase hidden behind a door in a really old house, you might have just found a servant staircase, one of the most fascinating and often forgotten features of Victorian-era homes and estates. These stairways were never meant for show. In fact, their entire purpose was to stay out of sight. Back in the 19th and early 20th centuries, homes with live-in staff often had these separate staircases tucked away behind the kitchen or down a side hallway. They allowed maids, cooks, and housekeepers to move quickly and quietly between floors without crossing paths with the homeowners or guests. It was basically the 1800s version of incognito mode. While some might view them as a symbol of social separation, these staircases were also practical, designed to keep households running smoothly and efficiently. Today, many of these old staircases are sealed off or labeled unsafe. They're often too steep, too narrow, and just not up to modern building codes. But if you ever find one still intact, It's like stepping into a time capsule and maybe even finding the perfect hide-and-seek spot. Just don't forget leg day, because after a few trips up and down, you'll definitely feel the burn. Kitchen fireplaces. Before stainless steel stoves and digital coffee makers took over the kitchen, there was one central feature every old home relied on: the kitchen fireplace. These big brick-lined hearths weren't just for warmth. They were the heart of the home. Whether you were brewing morning coffee, boiling water, or roasting a chicken, the fireplace did it all. And on a cold February morning, there was nothing cozier than pulling up a chair beside it while the fire crackled and the smell of something cooking filled the air. Kitchen fireplaces were built to take the heat, literally. With deep fireboxes and heavy iron equipment, they were designed to handle large pots, kettles, and roasting spits. Long before central heating, this was the family's gathering spot during winter, where chores, meals, and conversation happened side by side. One of the wildest bits of history? The use of turnspit dogs, small dogs that ran on wheels to rotate spits over the fire. Yes, they were basically the kitchen's first rotisserie motors. A little strange by today's standards, but undeniably clever. Push-button switches. Long before dimmers and smart bulbs took over, there was a time when turning on the lights was an oddly satisfying experience, all thanks to push-button switches. With their distinctive click-clack sound, they were the ASMR of the early 20th century. When electricity became more common in homes, these little beauties replaced the old pull-cord method of lighting and brought with them a mix of function, charm, and a bit of flair. Each switch had two buttons, one for on, one for off, that toggled back and forth with a crisp mechanical snap. And if you peeked behind the plate, you might even catch a little spark flash, as if the electric demons inside the wires were itching to get out. Creepy? Maybe. But also kind of cool. People didn't just install these switches, they dressed them up. Decorative plates came in brass, porcelain, and even mother of pearl, turning a simple switch into a statement piece. But for all their charm, they weren't exactly the safest. Connected to old knob and tube wiring, they were prone to failure and sometimes fire hazards. Today's toggle switches may be safer, but let's be honest, they don't have the same soul. Push-button switches didn't just light up a room, they lit up an era. If you could bring back one of these lost features, which one would it be, and why? Mudrooms. If you grew up hearing, "Take your shoes off before you come in," on repeat, then you already understand the genius of the mudroom. This humble, often overlooked little space was a lifesaver in old homes, a buffer between the great outdoors and your clean living room rug. Designed to keep dirt, snow, and whatever else the kids or dogs dragged in from spreading through the house, mudrooms were the real MVP of household cleanliness. Usually tucked at the back of the house near the kitchen or side entry, mudrooms acted like a domestic airlock, keeping warm air in, cold air, and grime out. Sure, the name isn't flashy, but the purpose was crystal clear. Stop the mud at the door. A well-equipped mudroom came with coat hooks, a sturdy shoe rack, a catch-all dresser for outdoor odds and ends, and maybe even a bench for sitting while you tugged off your boots. No carpets here, just tough, easy-to-mop tile, or linoleum that could stand up to the messiest weather. Small? Yes. Stylish? Sometimes. But effective? Absolutely. If your house had one, chances are it kept peace in the family and mud off the floors. Floor grates. Before central heating systems and HVAC units became standard, homes relied on something far more charming and sometimes a little chaotic: floor grates. These cast-iron beauties were the granddaddies of today's heating vents, and you can still find them scattered across the floors of older houses, quietly whispering stories from a bygone era. More than just functional, floor grates were pieces of art, ornate, heavy, and often crafted with intricate scrollwork. They didn't just warm your toes, they added elegance to the room. Warm air from furnaces or wood stoves below would rise through these openings, naturally heating the rooms above. Of course, if you had curious kids in the house, these grates became irresistible portals to the unknown. Coins, marbles, toy cars, and the occasional house key would disappear into the abyss below. Some families still consider them unofficial time capsules, so if you're into treasure hunting, start there. Modern vents, flat, dull, and way too safe. But those old floor grates? They had style, history, and just enough mystery to make heating your house feel like a little adventure. Conversation pits. Back in the 1970s, conversation pits were the height of home design, literally and figuratively the center of attention. These sunken living room areas were all the rage, offering a cozy built-in seating zone set below the main floor level. They were designed for one thing: togetherness. No phones, no distractions, just family, friends, and hours of talking, laughing, and maybe a little too much fondue. They were often referred to as the mullet of interior design, business on the edges, party in the middle. And yes, more than a few people joked that they looked like indoor swimming pools, especially when ringed with colorful cushions and shag carpeting. But for all their groovy appeal, they had their drawbacks. If you ever had one, you know the dangers. Telling someone to watch their step just seconds before hearing a crash from the living room. They were notorious trip hazards. Plus, they weren't exactly flexible. Want to change the furniture layout? Tough luck. Rearrange the space? Not unless you're ready to patch a giant hole in your floor. In the end, conversation pits fell out of style, but they left behind some unforgettable memories, some warm and nostalgic, others just a little bruised. High ceilings. If your home has high ceilings, first of all, congrats. You've got one of the most impressive, luxurious features a house can offer. You've also just guaranteed you'll never have to stress over whether that towering bookcase will fit. But, like all great things, high ceilings come with their highs and lows, literally. Historically, these lofty spaces were a sign of status and wealth. In the Georgian and Victorian eras, the taller the ceiling, the grander the impression. And before HVAC systems ever existed, high ceilings helped with passive cooling, heat rises after all. Wealthy homeowners got to beat the summer heat and show off at the same time. Of course, the real fun came with the lofts. Got something to send downstairs? Just toss it over the railing. Laundry, snacks, the occasional soda can if you were feeling lucky. The space begged for creativity. Add tall curtains for drama, hang giant artwork for impact, or go full whimsy and install a swing. Why not? But then comes reality. That glorious 15-foot ceiling, it turns changing a light bulb into a rock climbing expedition. Elegant, yes. Practical? Only if you've got a tall ladder and nerves of steel. Root cellars. Now there's a blast from the past that's as practical as it is nostalgic. Back in the 1970s, especially out in rural areas, these underground storage spaces were a household essential. And, let's be honest, they looked like something straight out of The Lord of the Rings. Round doors, earthen walls, cool, damp air. They were lovingly nicknamed hobbit holes for a reason. These clever storage units weren't just charming, they were functional. Dug deep into the earth, root cellars used the natural insulation of soil to keep a steady, cool temperature year-round. That meant families could store potatoes, carrots, onions, and even canned goods for months on end. It was like nature's refrigerator, only powered by good old-fashioned elbow grease. Root cellars came in all shapes and styles. Some were walk-in rooms lined with shelves, others were simple pits. Some folks even designed them to double as bomb shelters during Cold War scares. Sure, modern fridges and freezers have mostly replaced them, but those who grew up with a root cellar know they were the ultimate survival stash and a top-tier hide-and-seek spot. Want to prep for anything from a harvest to the apocalypse? A Root Cellar's got you covered. Luggage hideaway, or card table nook. If you've ever lived in or visited an older home and noticed a tiny mystery door tucked beside a hallway closet, you're not alone in wondering what on earth it was for. Narrow, maybe 12 inches wide, and short, usually less than half the height of a regular closet, these curious compartments have puzzled plenty of people. But after digging through old house lore, one thing is clear. These mini closets weren't for hiding people, despite how it might look. Some folks call it a luggage hideaway. Others say it was built for card tables or even roll-away bed storage. And honestly, they're probably all correct. Back in the 1950s and earlier, card tables were a household staple. Families would pull them out for bridge night, poker with neighbors, or board games with the kids. So it made perfect sense to have a slim, deep space, often about 3 feet deep, to stash one neatly out of the way until guests arrived. Whatever you call it, that little door is a clever relic from a time when storage was about functionality, not just aesthetics. Got one? You've got a slice of mid-century genius right in your hallway. Secret room. There's something endlessly fascinating about the idea of a secret room, especially when it's hidden behind a twisting staircase in a grand old Victorian home. These mysterious spaces spark the imagination. What would you do with a secret room? Hide valuables? Escape reality? Or maybe just keep it for the thrill of knowing it's there? One of the most famous examples of secret rooms in American history sits in San Jose, California. The Winchester Mystery House. Built in the late 1800s by Sarah Winchester, heiress to the rifle fortune, this sprawling mansion is the stuff of legends. With staircases that lead to nowhere, doors that open into walls, and hidden rooms tucked in unexpected corners, it's said Sarah designed the home to confuse the ghosts of those killed by Winchester firearms. Whether the stories are true or not, the house stands as a bizarre and brilliant monument to grief, guilt, and imagination. In the Victorian era, secret rooms weren't unusual. They were often used to store valuables or create private hideaways. But in the case of Sarah Winchester, they might have served a more mysterious purpose. Did your childhood home have any of these old features? Which one brings back the strongest memory? Laundry chutes. Back in the day, almost every well-designed home had a little hidden gem tucked into a hallway or bathroom wall, the laundry chute. It might seem like a luxury now, but in mid-century homes, this clever feature was standard. A small door, a short toss, and your dirty clothes magically disappeared down to the laundry room. And for busy families, it was a game changer. In the 1970s, the laundry chute wasn't just useful, it was fun. Kids loved tossing socks and shirts down the shaft, and occasionally someone might ask, "Honey, have you seen the cat?" Yep, curious pets and toys sometimes took the ride too, but for the most part, it made chores just a little easier and a little more entertaining. Sure, we may joke about not knowing where the clothes go or how the towels seem to vanish, but let's be honest, it was incredibly satisfying. No overflowing hampers, no lugging baskets down the stairs. Just one quick drop, and it was someone else's problem. Add a little vacuum suction to that setup today, and you'd have a modern marvel worth reviving in every home. Dumbwaiter. Once a staple in older homes, the dumbwaiter was one of the smartest little inventions to quietly make life easier. Unlike the more well-known service elevators in mansions, residential dumbwaiters were compact, practical, and usually hidden in plain sight. Most homes that had them featured two types, one by the fireplace, designed to bring coal or firewood up from the basement, and another that stretched all the way from the basement to the attic, with stops in the kitchen, hallway, and sometimes even the attic itself. These small lifts weren't just for show. They were incredibly useful for transporting laundry, dishes, or supplies between floors, all without having to carry heavy loads up and down the stairs. But over the years, many dumbwaiters were removed during renovations, leaving behind clues like trapdoors in the floor or tall, narrow closets that seem oddly out of place. Thinking of building one today? A word of advice: don't attempt it with a retired engineer unless you're ready for headaches. These systems can get complicated fast, especially with electrical wiring. If you're after that vintage charm without the fuss, a manual version might be the way to go. Just crank, lift, and enjoy a touch of old-world convenience. Which of these items brought back the strongest memories for you? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this nostalgic journey, give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to tap the bell so you never miss a trip back in time. Thanks for watching.